The crystal chandelier above me cost more than my truck. I stood there in the grand ballroom of the Riverside Manor, watching Lila, our wedding planner, fuss over centerpieces like they held the secrets of the universe. The irony wasn't lost on me. A blue-collar mechanic getting married in a place where the doorknobs probably cost more than most people's rent. "What do you think about the orchids, Jake?" Lila asked, her voice dripping with the kind of enthusiasm that suggested she'd had too much caffeine. Kara specifically requested white orchids to match the vintage lace theme. I glanced around the empty ballroom, imagining it filled with guests in 3 days. The venue was impressive, I'll give it that. High ceilings, marble floors that reflected the afternoon light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. But something felt off. Kara had been distant for weeks, claiming wedding stress. Now I wondered if there was more to it. "They look great," I said, though honestly, flowers were flowers to me. "Where is Kara anyway? She was supposed to meet us here an hour ago." Lila checked her phone, frowning. She texted that she's running late. Something about a client emergency at the PR firm. Of course. Kara's job at Morrison & Associates always came first. Even now, 3 days before our wedding, she was putting clients ahead of us. I pulled out my phone to call her, but a text message popped up before I could dial. "I can't do this marriage. Sorry." I stared at the screen, reading the message 3 times. 8 words. 8 words to end 3 years together. No explanation, no conversation, just a text message that felt like a slap across the face. "Everything all right?" Lila asked, noticing my expression. "Cancel everything," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "The wedding's off." Lila's face went pale. "What? Jake, what happened?" I showed her the text. She gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my goodness, are you sure? Maybe she just needs some space, cold feet, you know?" "Pretty sure," I said, pocketing my phone. "How much will canceling cost me?" While Lila scrambled through her contracts, muttering about deposits and vendor agreements, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak. That would come later. This was something else. Calculation. Kara thought she could just walk away with a text message, leave me standing in a wedding venue like some abandoned piece of furniture, not even a post-it note on the fridge. Classy exit, Kara. I left Lila to handle the cancellations and walked to my truck. Sitting in the parking lot, I opened the Find My Friends app on my phone. Kara never changed her password for anything, a habit that used to amuse me. Now it might prove useful. Her location showed the Grandview Hotel downtown. Not her office, not her apartment. The Grandview was expensive, the kind of place where businessmen took clients they wanted to impress, or where people went for affairs. I drove downtown, my mind racing. 3 years together, and she ends it with a text? There had to be more to this story. The Grandview's parking lot was half full. I spotted Kara's silver BMW near the entrance, and next to it, a black Tesla I recognized. Dean Hartwell, her ex-boyfriend from college, now some hotshot tech entrepreneur. I'd met him at a few of Kara's work events. Smug smile, expensive suits, the kind of guy who name-dropped constantly and always seemed to be looking over your shoulder for someone more important to talk to. I parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, they emerged from the hotel. Kara looked radiant, laughing at something Dean said. She looked happier than I'd seen her in months. They kissed, not a friendly peck, but the kind of kiss that told a story. Turns out the only thing she wanted tied up this week was my dignity. I took photos with my phone. Clear shots of them together, the kiss, Dean's hand on her waist. Then I did something that felt both petty and necessary. I sent the photos to Dean's wife, Marcy, along with a simple message. Thought you should know. Next, I posted on the local wedding forum where Kara had been active for months, sharing our engagement story and wedding plans. I created a new thread titled, "When Your Fiancé Cancels Via Text," and shared our story, complete with timeline and photos. I didn't use names, but anyone who knew us would recognize the details. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing with calls from both Kara and Dean. I ignored them all, feeling something I hadn't felt in months: control. Let the games begin. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My garage had never felt more like a sanctuary. Surrounded by engine parts, tools, and the comforting smell of motor oil, I spent the evening planning my next moves. Eddie, my best friend and owner of Murphy's Bar, sat on a crate of oil filters, nursing a bottle of beer. "You sure about this, Jake?" Eddie asked. He was ex-police, which made him both a good friend and a voice of reason. Revenge can get messy fast. "She made it messy when she decided to humiliate me," I said, wiping down a wrench I'd been holding for the past 10 minutes. 3 days before our wedding, Eddie. 3 days. "I get it, man, but maybe—" My phone buzzed with an email notification. Then another, and another. I opened my work email to find a dozen messages from HR, my supervisor, and several co-workers. Someone had forwarded them a series of emails allegedly from me, containing inappropriate comments about female colleagues and clients. The emails were good forgeries. I'll give Kara that. They had my signature, my writing style, even references to specific projects. But she'd made one mistake: the timestamps. According to these emails, I'd been sending inappropriate messages during times when I was provably elsewhere, including during our engagement party last month. "She's trying to get me fired," I told Eddie, showing him the emails. Eddie whistled low. That's cold, even for someone ending an engagement. But I'd anticipated this. Kara was in public relations. Image management was her specialty. She'd try to destroy my reputation before I could damage hers. Fortunately, I'd learned a few things about documentation during our relationship. I opened my laptop and accessed a cloud storage account I'd set up months ago. Inside was a folder labeled Insurance, containing screenshots of our text conversations, photos of us together, and most importantly, copies of real emails from my work account showing the actual timestamps and content. I created a comprehensive response email to HR, including a side-by-side comparison of the forged emails versus my actual communication style, the time-stamp discrepancies, and a formal complaint about someone impersonating me. I also included a brief explanation of my personal situation, keeping it professional, but making it clear that someone was trying to sabotage my career out of spite. "Now for the fun part," I told Eddie. Dean's Tesla was parked outside his luxury condo building when I arrived at midnight. The parking garage was well lit but empty. I'd brought a small toolkit, nothing fancy, just enough to make a point. I didn't touch the car itself. That would be vandalism, possibly a felony. Instead, I focused on the tires. Not slashing. That would be too obvious and too criminal. I simply let the air out of all 4 tires, a time-consuming inconvenience that would cost Dean a few hours and some money, but nothing more. Then, I left a note under his windshield wiper. "Objects in mirror are closer than your wife thinks." The next morning brought results. Marcy Hartwell had apparently received my photos and done some investigating of her own. Dean's social media accounts were flooded with comments from friends and family asking pointed questions about his marriage. Kara's carefully curated Instagram, where she'd been documenting our wedding planning for months, was now filled with comments from people who'd seen the wedding forum post. My phone rang. Kara's name on the screen. "Jake, we need to talk," she said when I answered. "About what? I thought you said everything you needed to say yesterday, via text." "Don't be like this. It's complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed, and it sounded harsh even to me. "You're right, Kara. Cheating on your fiancé 3 days before the wedding is very complicated. Much more complicated than, say, having an adult conversation. I never meant for it to happen this way." "Which part? The affair or getting caught?" Silence on her end. Then, "Dean and I have history. We reconnected at that conference last month and things just happened. Things just happened. Right. Like you just happened to book a hotel room. Just happened to lie to me for weeks. Just happened to try to destroy my career this morning. I don't know what you're talking about. The forged emails, Kara. Really? You think I'm stupid enough not to keep records? Another pause. You're making this harder than it needs to be. For who? You? Because from where I'm sitting, you made this as easy as possible. For yourself. I want to come get my things from the apartment. Your things are already packed. They're in the garage. You can pick them up anytime. Jake? I hung up. Eddie arrived an hour later with coffee and donuts. How you holding up? Better than expected, I said. Kara's boss suspended her pending an investigation into her personal conduct affecting the company's reputation. Apparently, several clients saw the forum posts and recognized her from the photos. And Dean? Marcy filed for divorce this morning, posted about it on social media, tagged all their mutual friends. Eddie shook his head. You're playing with fire, Jake. Maybe, but they lit the match. My phone buzzed with a text from Kara. You think you're so clever. I'm going to take everything from you. I showed Eddie the message. Take everything? I said aloud, feeling that cold calculation settle in my chest again. Honey, you haven't checked the basement yet. The Riverside Tavern was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, which made it perfect for what I had planned. I sat at the bar, nursing a beer, waiting for Kara to arrive. She'd agreed to meet me here to discuss things civilly, though I suspected she had other plans. My sister Sophie had spent the morning doing what she did best, digging up information. Sophie worked in IT for a local bank and had a talent for finding digital breadcrumbs. What she'd discovered about Kara's recent activities was illuminating. She's been sloppy, Sophie had told me over the phone. Her social media privacy settings are a joke, and she's been using the same passwords for everything. I found her private message threads with Dean going back 2 months. Want to guess what they've been discussing? The answer was me. Specifically, how to end our relationship in a way that would leave Kara looking like the victim. They'd planned the whole thing, from the timing to the method. The hotel rendezvous wasn't spontaneous passion. It was a calculated move designed to force a confrontation. But they'd underestimated me. Kara walked into the tavern looking like she was preparing for a business meeting. Sharp suit, perfect makeup, hair pulled back in a way that made her look older and more serious. She spotted me at the bar and walked over, her heels clicking on the worn wooden floor. Jake, she said, sliding onto the stool next to me. Thanks for agreeing to meet. Seemed like the mature thing to do, I said. Unlike ending a 3-year relationship via text message. She flinched. I know how this looks. How it looks. I turned to face her fully. Kara, you cheated on me with your ex-boyfriend for 2 months, planned our breakup like a corporate restructuring, tried to destroy my career, and now you want to sit here and talk about how things look? Several people at nearby tables had turned to listen. The Riverside wasn't large, and conversations carried. Keep your voice down, Kara hissed. Why? Worried about your reputation? Little late for that, don't you think? That's when Dean walked in. I hadn't expected him, but I should have. Kara probably thought having backup would give her an advantage. Dean looked less polished than usual. His expensive suit couldn't hide the stress lines around his eyes, and he kept checking his phone like he was expecting bad news. Jake, Dean said, approaching our table with his hand extended. I think we should clear the air. I looked at his offered hand but didn't take it. Clear the air? Is that what we're calling adultery now? Look, I know this situation is uncomfortable for everyone. Uncomfortable? I stood up, and Dean took a step back. You think this is uncomfortable? Let me tell you what's uncomfortable, Dean. Uncomfortable is finding out your fiancé has been lying to you for months. Uncomfortable is having your wedding canceled 3 days before the ceremony. Uncomfortable is discovering that your life has been turned into entertainment for two people who apparently never learned how to have adult conversations. "Jake, please," Kara said. "People are staring." "Good. Let them stare. Let them see what happens when people like you think they can treat others like disposable objects." Dean tried to step between us. "This isn't helping anyone." That's when Kara slapped me. The sound echoed through the suddenly quiet tavern. Everyone was watching now, phones probably recording. Kara's face was flushed, her careful composure finally cracking. "You self-righteous piece of garbage," she said. "You think you're so much better than everyone else with your blue-collar nobility act? You're nothing, Jake. You fix cars for a living while I'm building a real career. Dean and I are equals. We understand each other in ways you never could." The tavern was silent, except for the low hum of the air conditioning. I touched my cheek where she'd hit me, more surprised than hurt. "You're right, Kara," I said quietly. "We're not equals. I would never treat someone the way you've treated me." I turned to Dean. "How's married life treating you, by the way?" "Oh wait, that's right. Marcy changed the locks yesterday. Saw the photos on her social media. Nice touch, putting all your stuff on the front lawn with a sign that said, 'Free to a good home.'" Dean's face went white. "How did you know about that?" "Same way I knew about your little planning sessions. Same way I knew you've been telling people that Jake the mechanic was never good enough for Kara anyway. Same way I knew about your other girlfriend." Both Kara and Dean stared at me. "Other girlfriend?" Kara said. I pulled out my phone and showed them screenshots Sophie had found. Messages between Dean and someone named Lisa from his office dating back 6 months. Much more explicit than his messages with Kara. "Turns out you're not as special as you thought, Kara. Dean's been networking in multiple bedrooms." Dean lunged at me, but I was ready. I sidestepped and he stumbled into a table, sending drinks flying. The tavern erupted in noise as people jumped up to avoid the spill. "You're lying," Dean said, scrambling to his feet. "Am I? Why don't you call Lisa and ask her?" "Oh wait, you can't. She quit yesterday after HR received some interesting screenshots. Apparently, your company takes harassment seriously." Dean's face crumpled. "You sent them to—" "I didn't send anything to anyone," I said. "But once information is out there, it tends to spread. Amazing how that works." Kara was staring at Dean with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "You told me I was the only one. You said what we had was special." "It was," Dean stammered. "Lisa didn't mean anything." "Get away from me," Kara said. "Both of you just get away from me." She pushed past us toward the exit, but I called after her. "Kara, wait. There's one more thing you should know." She turned back, tears streaking her makeup. "Your mother called me this morning. Apparently someone sent her screenshots of your messages with Dean. She wanted to know if the wedding was really canceled or if you were just going through a phase. I told her you'd have to explain that yourself." Kara's face went ashen. Her mother was deeply religious and had very strong opinions about adultery and family values. "You didn't," she whispered. "I didn't have to. Turns out, when you post your business on public forums, people talk, and your mother's church friends are very active on social media." Kara fled the tavern. Dean started to follow her, then seemed to think better of it. He turned back to me. "This isn't over," he said. "You're right," I replied. "It's not." As they left, the tavern slowly returned to normal. Eddie appeared at my elbow. He'd been watching from the back of the room. "You okay?" he asked. "Getting there," I said. "But we're just getting started." My phone was already buzzing with notifications. The confrontation had been recorded and was spreading across social media. Kara's professional reputation was in free fall, and Dean's business was starting to suffer as clients distanced themselves from the scandal. Some men bring flowers to an ex. I brought a flamethrower, figuratively speaking, of course. The abandoned warehouse on River Street had been empty for 5 years, ever since the textile company moved their operations overseas. It was the perfect place for what I had planned: isolated, atmospheric, and completely legal to enter since the city had declared it a public safety hazard and removed all the locks. It had taken 3 days to set everything up. Sophie had helped me install wireless cameras in strategic locations, all connected to a live streaming setup that would broadcast to a private social media group I'd created. The group included everyone from Kara's professional circle, Dean's business contacts, and most of the people who'd been invited to our wedding. The invitation I'd sent them was simple: if you want the truth about why the wedding was canceled, meet me at the River Street warehouse tonight at 9 p.m. Come alone. I knew they'd come. Kara, because she thought she could still control the narrative, and Dean because he was desperate to salvage his reputation. What they didn't know was that they'd be performing for an audience of about 200 people. I arrived early and did a final check of the equipment. The cameras were hidden but positioned to capture everything. The streaming software was ready. All I had to do was wait. Kara arrived first, looking nervous but determined. She'd dressed down for the occasion, jeans and a sweater instead of her usual business attire. She probably thought it would make her seem more sympathetic. "Jake?" she called out as she entered the main floor of the warehouse. "Are you here?" "Over here," I called from behind a stack of old machinery. I stepped into view, and she visibly relaxed. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she said. "I know things got heated the other night, but I think we can work this out like adults." "Work what out exactly?" "This whole situation. The social media posts, the forum threads, involving our families and friends. It's gotten out of hand." "Has it?" "Because from where I stand, people are just learning the truth." "Your version of the truth," she said. "But there's more to the story." "I'm listening." That's when Dean appeared in the doorway. He looked around nervously, clearly uncomfortable with the setting. "This place gives me the creeps," he said. "Can't we do this somewhere else?" "We're here now," I said. Might as well get comfortable. I activated the live stream with a button on my phone. A small red light on the main camera indicated we were broadcasting. Neither Kara nor Dean noticed. "All right," I said. "You wanted to tell your side of the story. Go ahead." Kara and Dean exchanged glances. They'd obviously planned this conversation, probably rehearsed it. "Jake," Kara began, "what happened between Dean and me wasn't planned. We ran into each other at the Morrison conference last month, started talking about old times, and things just developed." "Developed," I repeated. Interesting word choice. How exactly did things develop? Dean stepped forward. "Look, Jake, I know this is painful, but Kara and I have a history. We dated in college, stayed friends after. When we reconnected, we realized we still had feelings for each other. Feelings you decided to explore while she was engaged to me." "It wasn't like that," Kara said. "I was having doubts about our relationship anyway. The wedding planning was stressful, and we were growing apart." "Growing apart?" I laughed, and the sound echoed in the empty warehouse. "Kara, 2 months ago you were posting on social media about how excited you were to marry me. You were showing off your dress to anyone who'd listen. When exactly did we start growing apart?" She faltered. "It was gradual." "Was it gradual when you booked the hotel room? Was it gradual when you started planning how to end our relationship in the most humiliating way possible?" Both of them stared at me. "Oh yes," I continued. "I know about the planning. The text messages between you two, discussing timing and strategy. How you wanted to make sure I looked like the problem, not you. How you were going to manage the narrative to protect your reputations." I pulled out my phone and started reading from Sophie's screenshots. Dean to Kara, 3 weeks ago. "We need to be smart about this. Jake seems like the type who might cause problems if he finds out the wrong way." Kara to Dean. "Don't worry, I know how to handle him. He's not sophisticated enough to do any real damage to our careers." Kara's face had gone pale. "Where did you get those?" "Does it matter?" The point is, you two treated ending my relationship like a corporate merger. You calculated every move, planned every contingency, except for one thing. What's that? Dean asked. You underestimated me. I held up my phone, showing them the live stream interface. Say hello to your audience. We've got about 200 viewers right now, including your boss, Kara, and most of your business partners, Dean. Both of them spun around, looking for cameras. Dean spotted one and started toward it. I wouldn't touch that if I were you, I said. Destroying someone else's property is a crime, unlike everything I've done, which has been perfectly legal. You're insane, Kara said. This is harassment. Is it? You came here voluntarily. You're free to leave any time. I'm just giving people the chance to hear the whole story, not just the version you've been spinning. Dean was frantically checking his phone. The stream is live, he said to Kara. People are commenting. What are they saying? She asked. Dean's face crumpled as he read. They're not on our side. I walked over to a folding chair I'd set up earlier and sat down. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell everyone watching the complete truth about your affair, your planning, and your attempts to destroy my reputation. Or you can leave, and I'll tell the story myself with all the documentation I've gathered. This is blackmail, Kara said. No, this is consequences. You made choices, and now you get to own them publicly. For the next hour, I methodically went through everything. The timeline of their affair, the forged emails, the calculated way they'd ended our relationship. I showed screenshots, played audio recordings of voicemails they'd left me, and read their private messages aloud. The live stream chat was brutal. Comments ranged from supportive messages for me to scathing criticisms of Kara and Dean. Several people mentioned that they were screenshotting everything for posterity. Please, Kara finally said, tears streaming down her face. Please stop this. You've made your point. Have I? Because 3 days ago, you thought you could humiliate me with a text message and walk away clean. You thought I was too simple, too unsophisticated to fight back effectively. I stood up and walked over to where they were huddled together. You were wrong. Dean tried to push past me toward the exit, but I blocked his path. Not violently, just standing in his way. Where are you going, Dean? The show's not over yet. Get out of my way, he said. Or what? You'll call the police? Tell them what, exactly? That you're being held accountable for your actions? That's when we heard sirens in the distance. Someone had apparently called the authorities, probably thinking the confrontation might turn violent. Looks like we're about to have more company, I said. Don't worry, though. Everything I've done here is completely legal. Can you say the same about forging emails to get someone fired? The police arrived and quickly determined that no crimes were being committed. The warehouse was public property, everyone was there voluntarily, and I had every right to stream our conversation. They did ask me to end the stream, which I did, but not before addressing the audience one final time. Thank you all for watching, I said to the camera. I hope this has been educational. Sometimes the truth is messy, but it's always worth telling. As the police left and the warehouse emptied, Kara and Dean stood in the shadows, looking defeated. This isn't over, Dean said as he headed for the exit. You're right, I replied. It's not. You can't arrest a hurricane. You just board up the windows and pray. The Riverside Manor looked exactly the same as it had a week ago when I'd canceled my wedding. The crystal chandelier still sparkled, the marble floors still gleamed, and the same sense of expensive elegance filled the air. Tonight, however, the venue was hosting the annual City Business Awards Gala, where Kara had been nominated for PR Professional of the Year. I'd bought a ticket using a different name and dressed in the one good suit I owned. Security was minimal. This was a business networking event, not a high-security affair. Getting inside was easy. The ballroom was filled with the city's business elite, exactly the audience Kara cared about most. She was at a table near the front, wearing a stunning black dress and trying to look confident despite everything that had happened. Dean was notably absent. Apparently, his business partners had suggested he keep a low profile until the scandal died down. I found a table in the back and waited for the right moment. The evening proceeded with the usual mix of speeches, awards, and networking. Kara's category was scheduled near the end of the program. As the presenter took the stage to announce the PR awards, I made my move. I walked calmly to the front of the room and up the steps to the stage. The presenter, confused by my appearance, stepped aside as I approached the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system, "I apologize for the interruption, but I have something important to share with you tonight." The room fell silent. I could see Kara at her table, her face frozen in horror. "My name is Jake Morrison, and I was supposed to get married in this very room 1 week ago today. The wedding was canceled when my fiancée, Kara Stevens, ended our 3-year relationship via text message so she could be with her ex-boyfriend." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People were turning to look at Kara, who had gone completely pale. "Now I know what you're thinking," I continued. "Relationships end, people change their minds, these things happen. And you'd be right except for one thing. Kara is nominated tonight for PR Professional of the Year, an award that recognizes ethical communication and professional integrity." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the venue's projection system, a feature I'd confirmed with Lila earlier that day when I'd called about returning something I'd left behind. I'd like to share with you some examples of Kara's professional communication skills. The first image that appeared on the screens around the room was a screenshot of Kara's message to Dean. "Jake is too simple to cause any real problems for our careers." The audience gasped. I could see people at Kara's table sliding their chairs away from her. Here's another example of her ethical approach to problem solving. The next image showed the forged emails she'd sent to my employer, side by side with the real emails, highlighting the differences. And here's my personal favorite, showing her commitment to honesty and transparency. This image was a timeline of her affair with Dean, complete with hotel receipts and private messages, all of which Sophie had legally obtained from public records and social media. Security was moving toward the stage now, but I wasn't finished. "I want to be clear," I said, speaking faster. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for truth. Kara Stevens spent months planning how to humiliate me and destroy my reputation to cover up her own choices. She used her professional skills to manipulate and deceive, not just me, but everyone in her life." I gestured toward her table. "That's not PR excellence, that's fraud." The security guards reached the stage, but the damage was done. The entire room was buzzing with conversation. Phones were out recording everything, and Kara had fled toward the exit. As security escorted me out, I passed her table. Her colleagues were staring at their phones, presumably looking up the social media posts and forum threads that had been circulating all week. One of them, a woman I recognized as Kara's supervisor, looked up at me as I passed. "Is all of this true?" she asked. "Every word," I said, "and I have documentation for all of it." Outside the venue, I found Kara sitting on the steps, crying. Her carefully applied makeup was ruined, and her expensive dress seemed suddenly inappropriate for someone whose career had just imploded on live television. "Are you happy now?" she asked without looking up. I sat down next to her, maintaining some distance. "No," I said honestly. "I'm not happy. This whole situation is miserable, but I'm satisfied." "Satisfied with what? Destroying my life?" "Satisfied that people know the truth. You made choices, Kara. You chose to cheat, chose to lie, chose to try to destroy my reputation to protect yours. I just made sure those choices had consequences." She finally looked at me, her eyes red and swollen. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said. "Yes, you did. You planned every step of this, right up until it backfired on you." We sat in silence for a moment, watching people leave the gala. Many of them stared at us as they passed, recognizing us from the evening's drama. "What happens now?" Kara asked. "Now you figure out how to rebuild your life without lying about who you are," I said. "Same thing I've been doing all week." I stood up and started walking toward my truck. "Jake," she called after me. I turned back. "I'm sorry," she said. "I really am sorry." "I know," I said. "But sorry doesn't fix anything. It just acknowledges that something was broken." I got in my truck and drove home, leaving her sitting on the steps of the venue where we were supposed to have celebrated our wedding. My phone was buzzing with calls and messages, but I ignored them all. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work fixing cars and rebuilding my life. Kara would have to figure out how to rebuild hers. Dean would have to deal with his divorce and his failing business. But tonight, for the first time in a week, I felt like myself again. They called me the villain. I stole the show.